Hi guys, Alex here, and welcome to the Trademate Sports Betting Podcast. Today I'm joined by the men behind the Golf Betting Club to talk all things golf betting, joined by Neil and Duncan Campbell. How are you, fellas?
Very well, thanks, Alex. Delighted to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, very well as well. Yeah, keeping me up past my bedtime. Not too happy about that, but apart from that,
Sorry, mate. I'll let Duncan do all the work, mate. He's looking a bit more brighter, so we'll make sure he does all the work today.
exactly. That's how we roll anyway.
I like you've got your own roles. Love it. Why don't we just start off? You guys can individually, let me know how you guys each got into the betting space. I understand you guys have a love of golf, but how did you turn golf, your love of golf into betting? Maybe start with you, Neil.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it all started basically from our early childhood. Our father was a golf journalist. He doesn't do so much of it now. But he would basically take us along to the tournaments. So it started off in Scotland, but we ended up going to quite a few in the UK. And he would take us in. We would just absolutely love going along. So that's where our passion for watching golf started. And then as we got a little bit older, he used to let us have a few pounds or dollars on a few players each week. And I think that really got our excitement up. But the more we watched it, the more we just loved learning about new players. And it just really grew from there. We'd be watching it on the TV most weeks, and begging our mum to get the subscription to Sky TV, so that we couldn't miss a shot. And that was just about it. Yeah, we just absolutely love watching and betting on golf, and we quickly realised we were quite good at it when we were both making a profit, and we decided to turn it into a business during COVID in June 2020.
Yeah, nice. So this is your full-time job, just watching and betting on golf the whole time. Are you guys betting on any other sports?
We do a bit of football betting as well. We've got like other interests as well. But we dabble in a bit of football. Neil probably more so than me in terms of football betting. But yeah, if tennis comes around and it's Wimbledon season, we'll obviously have a look at other sports as well. But really, with golf being pretty much a full year calendar in terms of competitions and events, I think there's only maybe like 3 or 4 weeks of the year where there's not a golf tournament that you can bet on. So it's pretty much a kind of all year round sport. So it keeps us pretty busy, and with obviously the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour and now Live Golf coming along as well, we're pretty much snowed under with golf. So there's plenty to keep us busy. So it's good. It's great to have so many events to constantly bet on, and there's always an angle or an opportunity to make some money.
Yeah, I know you guys are already covering the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. So do you think, maybe going into next year or later this year, you'll be expanding to Live also? I don't know if that you guys would have the time to do that also, but yeah, are you looking to do that?
Yeah, funnily enough, we just put out a Live preview this week for the first time. We've kind of I went to the first one in London, and I was impressed with the setup. Not so much the golf that first event in London, but I've kind of watched from afar at the next few events, and I thought the quality of the golf has improved enormously, and it's now becoming an event that's probably quite good to bet on, being a shorter nature, 54 holes. And a shotgun start means that it's over within 4 or 5 hours each day, whereas a traditional event, you'll be watching it, for a good 8-9 hours. So from a betting point of view, it's actually quite an interesting prospect. And we did our first preview this week, and we'll probably put out some tips later on tonight or in the morning, and really start looking to getting into Live, I think.
Yeah, nice. I mean, being a different format, it's a kind of a good scenario for sports bettors, isn't it? It's to find where a different edge could be, considering it's shorter tournament, maybe some different rules in place, or I don't know, there's not a cut, is there either? So I guess that adds in some other things that you guys can factor into your betting that maybe the market won't pick up on for the first few tournaments. So yeah, hopefully that goes well for you.
Sorry to add to that, Alex. If you look at the winners of the first few Live events, we've seen quite a few shocks already. So it's a completely different type of golf. I spoke to Duncan quite a lot about it, and motivation is a massive factor, and you've got to factor that in. Sometimes the betting market favourites might not just have the desire to win that they would do on the PGA Tour. So that might be a reason why we're seeing some larger prices. So there's definitely a lot of potential from a betting angle.
Yeah, our good mate Smithy over here is being paid some serious coin, so I think you'd probably lose a little bit of drive when you know you're going to be getting that money on the table. So yeah, no, it'll be such a such an interesting process to see how it all works out. All right, fellas, just to talk about you like your process for finding value in the markets. I haven't got your exact figures with me at the moment, but I understand you guys have been doing 30% ROI, something around that, for the last 2-3 years with your service through Premier Sports Plays. What is your process for finding value? You guys, I mean, there's lots of different ways you can do it. Modeling, through data. Maybe you're just using your eyes to do a bit of player or tournament analysis, these kind of things. What's your guys' process?
I think we both kind of approach it in slightly different ways. For me, it's quite player focused, and I'll look at, for example, a lot of quotes and a lot of interviews of players that I'm interested in. And then I'll kind of move on towards the stats and start looking at, who's striking the ball well, who's not striking the ball well. Particularly you'll look at the challenge for that week. So if the course for that week, demands accuracy off the tee, for example, I'll start focusing in on players who are accurate off the tee, rather than, players who maybe are a bit wayward off the tee. And then I'll kind of look at, where the value starts to lie, who has proven that they can go, cross the finishing line. I think you often see in golf, people selecting players at short prices who maybe their stats are absolutely fantastic, but when it comes to Sunday and it comes to the pressure cooker atmosphere, that they can't cope, they can't cross the finish line, and we are kind of reluctant to take those prices. And if you go on our website, you'll see that we've created player profiles for over 150 different players, analysing how they are in contention, who copes well with pressure and who doesn't. So I'm particularly focused on the players. Neil maybe takes a slightly different approach, but together we kind of come as one, and each brings our separate angle, and we kind of agree on the selections together. But yeah, Neil, maybe you've got some different thoughts that how you do it.
Yeah, it just kind of alternates every week. Like every week, I tend to be looking for something different. In general, I'm quite a big believer in form and look to see it trending in the right direction. In particular, the key stats, the strokes gain, tee to green, approach, and off the tee, and like to see the form coming together. But there is weeks where that's not the case, and that's what our previews are designed to do. Every week we do the preview, and we're looking to see exactly what we're looking for. And for example, this week, the start of the PGA Tour, recent form isn't that big a factor in history. So every week it changes, and you've got to be adaptive to what the event requires. So I wouldn't put one thing on it for any event.
Yeah, how do you guys start off your week? Because I imagine if you decided to go through and price up every single golfer on the tournament they're playing, it would just be an absolute nightmare. So are you guys looking at the prices first and then going from there, or before you look at the prices, you maybe looking at a few certain players and thinking, all right, there's a good chance that this guy's going to be value in the market? Because I can, with my own betting or any other person's betting, you can kind of you can see, maybe just like a good example is football or whatever. You can see that, let's just say Manchester United had a 1-0 victory on the weekend. They looked pretty terrible, but they got the win. That next weekend maybe the market might just favour them a little too much because maybe they're not a great team, but they still got the victory. So the market would be like, oh, they're going pretty good. Do you have any of those? Is it like that, or are you guys, I guess, looking at the prices first and then going from there?
think it's a little bit of both. I know that's a kind of a non-answer, but I think like before the start of the week, you'll set prices in your mind for certain players, and when the odds then come out, you look to react to that accordingly. Like you say, there's over 100 players in a field every week, and you're probably saying that maybe a third to a half of those players probably can't win the event that particular week. So really, you're looking at around about half the field that you're interested in, and you'll look to kind of put a rough price against them in your head, I suppose. And then when the odds come out on Odds Checker, you'll quite often get a large disparity in terms of the odds from the different bookmakers. It's not quite like other sports, like football, for example, where you've got leagues, you've got something to measure against. Every golf tournament is completely different. Every player's obviously got different qualities and different characteristics. So it kind of varies from week to week. But yeah, I think that when the odds come out on Odds Checker, you'll often see some prices that definitely stand out, and you think, he shouldn't be priced at that level. That's completely wrong. Or alternatively, a player looks far too short, and you think, I can't touch that. And I think the other thing worth saying is that you can also compare them with the players roundabout. So you can look at two players, for example, who might be priced up at the same price. Maybe it's 50 to 1. And you can say that, he maybe should be, 33 to 1, and the other guy should be 66 to 1. And it might be that both the prices are wrong. Or conversely, you do think that one of them is 50 to 1 and the other one is the wrong price. So just by comparing players, often you can find a bit of value, and that's quite often a good indicator of a wrong price.
Yeah, and are you guys working separately throughout the week, or are you in constant communication with each other?
Yeah, we're pretty much talking all through the week, especially because we do the pre-event tips and the in-play tips. So what tends to happen is we both do a preview each for the one for the DP World Tour and one for the PGA Tour. But we also both look at the selections for both events, and then we bring the arguments to each other, and sometimes we have a bit of a butt off, and someone's got to concede by the end because you can't pick them all. But usually one of us makes a convincing enough argument that we can make a solid enough compromise, and more often than not, we are on the same page.
Yeah. Have you guys ever had one that one of you really liked, but the other one just refused to have it on the tips for that week and it won?
I think there must have been one or two, but there's definitely been a few that have placed.
Tom Hoagie springs to mind.
Tom Hoagie, yeah, there's one.
Yeah, I was massively against the guy called Tom Hoagie earlier on in the year. I just didn't rate him, didn't like him in contention. I just thought he was consistently short in the betting, and he was being rated far too highly. And Neil was of the opposite opinion, and then Tom Hoagie obviously went and won. And, and then Neil gave me pelters for it.
I think, sorry to butt in again, I think that is one of our key differences between me and Duncan. I think Duncan is very heavily focused on, he likes to know that someone has been there and done that and got over the line. But I'm more of the opinion that I think if they're trending towards it, and that even if they've been in contention and not gone on to win, I see it more as a learning experience, and every time they get closer and closer. So I think we slightly differ in that aspect. And on that time it did cost us, but on the whole, it's a successful.
I would about that though. I would say that if the price is right, then I don't mind taking a gamble. So if you're backing someone at say 33 to 1, I want to know that the player can cope with the pressure and is able to convert if he gets himself into a good winning opportunity. If you're backing someone at 100 to 1, 150 to 1, I'm prepared to take the chance that he might or he might not be able to cope with the pressure, but you've got a big enough price there to make it worth your while. But when you're down the front of the betting in a golf tournament, I don't want to take short prices on guys that I know that might struggle.
Yeah, I think overall, your guys, you're going to have an advantage against most golf bettors by working together, because I mean, a lot of people are just doing this by themselves, and if you're just working by yourself the whole time, you're going to have, you know, your own opinions, your own biases. You're never going to really be challenged that much. Yeah, you might be great, but I'm a true believer in that. Like, let's just say individually, you both had like a 15% ROI on the golf if you just work to, you know, by yourselves. But you know, being able to bring that knowledge together and being able to debate certain topics, you know, and be challenged constantly, it's only going to help your guys betting and take those, like, let's just say individual ROIs of 15%. And I believe that if you guys work together, even if you work together and you brought in a couple of other guys and got their opinions every now and then, I think there's it's similar to like the I guess you can call it the closing line in football or whatever. Like if that closing line at Pinnacle Sports, it incorporates all the information of the wisdom of the crowd, if you want to call it that. So if you're able to beat that line, you're going to be profitable long term. And I guess it's the same of having a wisdom of a couple of people in golf betting. So I wondered whether you guys talk constantly or whether you guys like formed your own opinions beforehand and then brought that together. But it's interesting that you guys are always talking to each other and comparing opinions.
There are massive disagreements.
I think what you've just talked about there, having two of us instead of one, I think when it's really important is when the chips are down and when it's not going well for us. Golf betting is notoriously hard to land a winner, and sometimes you can go weeks without even landing a place. So when you do go on runs like that, I think it's great that we do have each other to support and we don't get too negative. If one of us is feeling a bit low about it, we can pick each other up. And I really think that is a strong factor that keeps us successful, especially this year, which we might go on to talk about later.
I've got some questions about you, how you guys are going this year, because I think it's I think the emotional side of golf betting is probably, for me at least, the most interesting. I mean, for someone that bets on MMA for a living, I only have to be stressed out for like 15 minutes, sometimes only even 1 minute. But I couldn't imagine being stressed out for 4 days. We'll talk about that later. But do you guys more questions just about the golf market in general? How do you guys think that the market is built from a bookmaker's perspective? Are we thinking it's completely data driven at the moment, or do you think, like you guys, incorporate, you know, kind of more I wouldn't say outside of the box factors, but you know, those kind of those softer factors that aren't really thought about too much about, you know, a player's emotional state, how they cope in the final days of a tournament. Do you think these kind of factors are incorporated into the bookmakers' prices, or do you think it's just completely data driven, at least to begin with?
I think there's a couple of different answers to this one. I think that when you see a player that has very obvious recent form and very obvious course form, I think the bookmakers naturally take a safe position on that particular player, because they know that the casual golf bettor will probably buy the Racing Post. They'll probably look and see, who's in form, who's had a couple of good results recently. Oh, he's played this course before and he's had a bit of success. So yeah, I like the look at him. So I think that for those kind of players that are good form and good course form and good recent form, I think they take a cautious approach with those players. Then I think there's certain players that are priced according to stats. So they may not have the obvious recent form, they may not have the obvious course form, but the stats are showing that they're playing really nicely. And again, I think the bookies will take a position with some of those players, regardless of whether or not they might have won before, you know, they've got potential. I think that they'll take a position just based on the fact that they're striking the ball nicely, and they think that a good result will therefore be coming soon. And then I think there are a lot of players near the back of the market that the bookmakers don't spend a lot of time pricing up. I think when you look at when the odds come out on Odds Checker on a Monday afternoon or Monday evening, I think you see that towards the back of the market, that some of the prices vary enormously. You know, it could be double, treble the price, even quadruple the price in some situations. As bookmakers can vary enormously. at the back of the field because they just tend to pay less attention to those players, and they'll just chalk them up at kind of any old random figure. So I think there's lots of value to be had near the back of the market, because I don't think the bookmakers pay all that much attention to it, to be honest.
Yeah, do you think there's a little bit of copy and paste too from certain bookmakers? Like, do you think there's a market leader at all? I mean, obviously, Betfair is probably going to be the best to go off, but early in the week, I'm not too sure. I don't really look at the golf market too earlier in the week, but I assume there wouldn't be as much, liquidity earlier in the week. So when these soft bookies are coming out with their prices, is there anyone that's actually, you think, got some reasonably sharp prices and that the market kind of follows?
I think it's normally Bet365 over here. They tend to be the first ones out, and you quite often notice, and you know it's a copy and paste job sometimes, because sometimes when they don't get their odds out by, say, early afternoon, no one does. So but if they're out by 11 a.m., then everyone's usually out by lunchtime or an hour after it. So there definitely is an element of that, but you've got to also factor in that each bookmaker is now offering different places and the each way terms. And I don't know what it's like over where you are, Alex, but in the major weeks we can now get up to 12 to 14 places. But in general, for a PG Tour event, you can get anywhere from 5, 6, 7, 8 places. So it's changing all the time, and it's a very competitive market space for the bookmakers to try and attract our business.
Yeah, I mean, over here, it's only really 2 bookmakers that I know of, Sports Bettor, which is basically Paddy Power or Betfair Sportsbook for you guys, and also Bet365. So, yeah, unfortunately, none of the books over here really have the each way thing going. It's all just, win only or top 5, top 10, these kind of things. So, yeah, if you want to be betting on golf, I'm not sure what it's like in the US, but yeah, definitely in the UK, it's a great place to be betting on golf from. Are you guys like? Sorry,
I was just going to say, I think the other thing maybe to add about odds is that a lot of the bookmakers will put out prices on a Monday, and they'll take relatively small sums from the sharps, and that'll frame their market. They will see that they've made a mistake with X player, and they'll very quickly, they'll take 20 quid, 50 quid, whatever it might be, and get the price slashed pretty quickly on that player. And I think the other thing to say is that there's probably several tipsters who move the market quite significantly here in the UK. And if one of those tipsters puts up a certain player, then the price on that player can half, within the space of a couple of hours, just because the bookmakers just don't want to take the action on that one player from the general public. So it does vary, and I think that all the bookmakers tend to kind of, by the time it gets to Wednesday, a lot of the prices have all become the same, give or take, for the each way places that Neil mentioned.
Yeah. So you guys put out your bets on a Wednesday. Are you guys ever looking at the exchange, Betfair exchange, maybe Thursday morning or something like that, and seeing and kind of comparing the prices you've given out to what's on the exchange and thinking, all right, I think we've locked in a pretty good price there. We've obviously got some value there. Or are you guys just not really concerned with where the market closes at all?
I personally think that exchange is a good indication of whether the price is right or not. But again, if we are betting each way, whether it's 5 places or 8 places, and the Betfair exchange market is only win only, then it's really not a true reflection of the each way price. So it's definitely something to take note of, and I think it's definitely not a bad thing if the price is coming in on the exchange for a selection you like. But in general, we are betting each way, so we are looking at the prices given for that.
Yeah, I have noticed that they've got an each way market up there now. I think it's like 10 places or something like that. So have you guys looked at that at all?
Yeah, they do have the each way 10 places, but the liquidity is just not there. And there's just not an awful lot of value there, to be honest. If you compare the each way 10 places on the exchange market versus, say, Sky Bet, a UK bookmaker that offers 10 places, generally what you'll find is the odds are higher at Sky Bet than the exchange. So I just don't feel like there's enough liquidity there to justify it.
Yeah, okay. And what's your guys' experience with getting limited on various bookmakers with golf? Because I mean, it's something that's going to happen eventually if you're a profitable sports bettor, but it's a completely different sport really to any other sport, because it's if I was a trader, I could see so quickly if someone was good at a profitable football bettor, rugby bettor, these kind of sports where there's clear indicators to see if someone's sharp or not. But with golf, it's not really as clear. You can only really use, well, at least I think, is that you can only really use profit and loss. So, yeah, if let's just say, you open up a new account, maybe a couple of weeks you don't get a winner, but then on your third or fourth week you get a huge winner. Is it just like, one big win and you're gone most of the time, or are they happy to kind of play around with you a little bit and give you a little bit of leeway? Because it is very hard for them, I would assume, to see if you guys are profitable or not, just because there's so much variance.
I think it depends, firstly, on the bookmaker, and secondly, on what you're doing, I suppose, what type of betting you're doing. So in terms of what bookmaker, there's some bookmakers that will literally one big win and that's you gone. There's no two ways about it. You're down to 5 pence max stakes, and that's the end of it. There's some bookmakers that will give you a bit more leeway, and you can get a good bit on them for a decent while before you get cut off. But the one that they all seem to hate is in-play betting. If you bet in play and you get a winner on the first week, your account will be pretty much gone for 90% of bookmakers, I would say. They really don't like in-play betting at all. That's something that will get your account closed pretty quickly. So it's a constant juggling act, I think, is trying to get an account that you can keep open for long enough to enjoy and get some profit out of it. It's definitely difficult, but yeah, certainly for some bookmakers, you open an account and by the time you've filled out all the online application, registered your card, you may as well not have bothered, because you're banned just as quick.
Yeah, I can assume it must be a bit of a nightmare for you guys, because you guys do rely on soft bookies quite a lot. Have you guys experimented at all with exchanges and seeing if your betting works through there by placing on the win market and also the top five? Because most of the time you're going to get better odds on the exchange for the win, but it's very hard to get similar terms, I guess, for top five.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we have to turn to the exchange. One of the reasons we started Golf Betting Club is because we were so frustrated that we couldn't get some of the prices that we knew were value, but we were limited in quite a lot of accounts. So we thought, let's start this, and we can make other people make money as well. But yeah, there's just it's a very frustrating thing when we've been betting on golf for just under 20 years now, and as you can imagine, we've burned through quite a lot of accounts. So for us to maintain a bookmaker's account for any longevity that can create us value is quite difficult. And we've quite often been known to have to use some contacts here and there, as you do.
Yeah.
You've just got to do what you can to try and get the value when it's there, and that's what we look to do. But it's nice now we can offer it out to other people.
Yeah, no, it's a good way of, I guess, counteracting the problem of losing your accounts. Is that I always wondered this with golf. Is it similar to other markets where you get big name golfers? So your Rory McIlroys. I mean, I don't follow golf too heavily, but I assume he's probably one of the bigger names, at least over here. Cameron Smith, these kind of guys. Are these guys commonly overpriced? Because I guess recreational bettors, if they're going to just have a bet here and there, they're probably going to bet one of the favorites or their favorite golfer coming into that tournament. Is that common in golf too, that a lot of the big name golfers are overpriced?
I would say so, Alex. If you look at this week, Rory McIlroy was playing in the Italian Open at the course that's going to be host to the Ryder Cup next year, and the course is absolutely made for Rory McIlroy's game. and we were seeing odds of 3 or 4 to 1 this week, and it's just not viable. And another one that we tend to see over in the UK is that UK golfers get priced up lower just because the recreational gambler over here is going to back their favorite, whether it used to be Ian Poulter or Lee Westwood back in the day, or now the likes of Tyrrell Hatton and Rory. So you'll often see the overseas players priced a little bit more better than the likes of the UK guys.
Yeah, I always like it when you guys send through bets for Australians, because I know that at least those ones will sneak under the radar, because they'll think I'm just having a punt on the Aussie. So I'm always happy when I see you guys send out some Australian fellas. How many selections are you guys looking at each week? Do you have a rule of how many golfers you want to be betting on, or do you ever kind of feel the pressure to put out a few certain number of selections? Because it's such a variant, such a variant sport. I assume at times you're a little bit worried that, I could, select maybe 5 to 10 guys and they all lose, or, none of them even get a place. So is there any kind of certain number of bets or, outright picks that you guys are trying to include in each week's tips?
No, I don't think so. I think it varies from event to event. You look at what that event dictates. You look to see if there's value, and you kind of set your stall out from there, your staking plan from there. Really, like I can think of maybe a handful of events where we've selected less than 5 golfers. I think generally 5 will be our minimum kind of number, unless it's like a small field event. So, for example, the Tournament of Champions on the PGA Tour has 30 to 40 golfers in it, and to go with more than 5 golfers would maybe be a bit of an overkill. But generally, in a normal PGA Tour or DP World Tour event, I think really we're looking between 6 and 8 golfers, and there's maybe been a handful of times where we've gone up to maybe like 9. I don't think we've ever gone to 10. But certainly like 8 or 9 would be about the maximum number of golfers. But really, if there's a week where there's plenty of value in the outsiders, and you can maybe get 8 or 9 guys at 100 to 1 plus, it's worth sometimes just rolling the dice on those longer plays and trying to get a big winner. Whereas some weeks, like the BMW PGA last week, is a good example, where the favourites or the lower odds guys generally prevail, and you probably want to have at least a couple of guys who are at the front of the market in your staking plan, just because that kind of event demands a player of real top quality, and you want someone that's maybe 20 to 1, 30 to 1 or less at the front of your staking plan. So it kind of varies from week to week. There's no kind of set limit. It just depends where you see the value.
Yeah, and I guess you guys can vary up your staking too. So even if one week you went crazy and picked 20 guys, you could almost, if you wanted to, halve your stakes on each of them. So you're not over putting too much risk into one tournament. How are you guys working out the each way markets? This is like my most I guess my biggest interest in how you guys go about your business is working out, I guess, the difference between backing a guy, let's just say, 1/5 of the price for 8 places, or 1/4 of the price for 5 or 6 places, something like that. How hard is it to judge whether there's more value in someone with the 5 places example compared to the 8 places? And if you guys have done any kind of like, I don't know, mathematical deep dive to see if there is like a general best way to approach your each way betting.
Yeah, there are calculations out there. I think, though, the way that we generally approach it is we look at the player that we're selecting and what we want from that particular player. So depending on the odds and the player profile that we're looking at, we're either looking at them for predominantly a win, and an each way would be nice, or we're looking for the each way return as the main factor and the win as the bonus. So really that's for me anyway. Maybe Neil feels differently, but when I'm selecting plays and if I'm talking to someone about each way place terms, in my mind I'm thinking, what do I want from this player? Am I really wanting that win? And that's what I'm going for with this bet, or am I wanting the each way place? And in which case I want more each way places. And that's how I generally approach it.
So I'm just thinking, I could be completely wrong here, but if you're trying to find golfers who are like, you literally just betting on them, like you said, just because you think they'll get an each way, they'll place in the top 8 or top 5, whatever it is. Do you think that, like, potentially by putting money on the win also, you're losing a bit of expected value there, or do you think that's kind of just like the insurance you have to pay to make sure you're locking in like a really good price there for your top 8, top 5, top 10, whatever the each way terms are?
I don't think it's a loss in expected value, because I think when we are selecting players, we're not selecting guys who can only get the each way. I think that we're selecting guys who have the potential to win, but the each way is really the kind of that's the kind of thing that you expect from him. If you're selecting a guy 100 to 1, if he goes on and gets the win, fantastic. But really, when you're looking at a player, that kind of level of odds, really for me, I'm looking at the each way place, and if he can go on and get the win, fantastic. If I want him in a different market, if I think he can't win, so there's maybe some golfers who can't, or I don't think can win. So like Cam Tringali was a
Tom Hoagie.
Tom Hoagie. So like Cam Tringali was a good example before he went to Live. Like Cam Tringali was a guy who would regularly post top 20 finishes, top 10 finishes on the PGA Tour, but he just could not get a win on the PGA Tour. He couldn't cut it on a Sunday. And if I ever wanted to back Cameron Tringali, which I wouldn't because his odds were always disgracefully short, but if I ever did want to back Cameron Tringali, it would have been, in the top 10 market or the top 20 market. And I wouldn't have played him in the each way market because I didn't think that win aspect was there. And that's not the right market to play him in.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it all makes sense. I think I guess people might ask, like, why don't you just, if you think, the main reason you're betting on someone's because of the each way terms, then why wouldn't you just back them, top 5 or top 10? But at the other end of the scale, if you do think they're going to win too, and the price is going to be much bigger if you back them on the each way, then yeah, it kind of makes sense. Does it get a little bit crazy though with some of these other? I mean, I've seen on Bet365 you can do like alternate each way terms. I think yesterday, I couldn't believe, I was just having a look around. I wasn't going to bet on it or anything, but some of these golfers were offering something like 14 places at like 1/10 of the. I mean, I could be exaggerating here, but like at that point, does it get a little bit too much where your each way terms or the place terms are just so unattractive at that point because you're getting 1/10 of the price or whatever the terms are?
Yeah, it's definitely made our job a lot more time consuming with all those new markets and places that have opened up. It's not as straightforward anymore as just clicking on odds checker and comparing all the bookmakers, because now we've got to dive into the website and see what odds they're offering on each places. So yeah, definitely as a factor. For me though, I would always favor, if the price was the same, I would always favor the more places for a fifth of the odds rather than say a quarter for 5 places if the price was the same. But that's something you've got to factor up. I think it just comes from experience, really. There might be a mathematical equation out there, but in general, you begin to get a feel for which places and which, where the value is, and that's generally, I think we're fairly good at that. But yeah, it definitely is time consuming with all the new places out there.
Yeah. And following your tips, why don't you guys bet more regularly outside of the outright markets, like, matchups, nationalities, these kind of things? Do you think it's just your style of betting, or maybe there's not as much value in those other markets?
I think for me, it's that we operate a service that encompasses UK clients, American clients, and clients from elsewhere as well. And the tricky thing that we've found in the last couple of years is trying to find markets where everyone can bet on. Obviously, everyone can get the outright market. Most people can get the first round leader market. But outside of that, then you've got all kinds of different variations and restrictions on what people can and can't bet on. So I think at the start we used to fire out bets like match bets, for example, of X player to beat Y player at, let's say, Bet365, and then you get messages from people saying, oh, I can't get that bet, I live in Canada or wherever someone is from, and then you're kind of, it's great for the people that can get the bet, but then you're almost alienating the people who can't get the bet, and they feel kind of ostracized from the group. So we've tried to keep it to the markets that everyone can get access to. I think quite often what we've done on Telegram is if there's a bet that we really like in a market that we're not sure people can get, we'll generally put it out as a lean. So we'll say that, there was a good example a few months ago where Marcel Siem on the European tour was coming back to play an event, and he posted on Instagram and said that, he hadn't been able to practice. He was literally just turning up to the event cold, having had 7 weeks out injured, and he was just going to see how it went. And, we put up a post on our Telegram group saying, we know that Marcel Siem's injured. He's probably going to play pretty badly in the first round. And if you can get any bets on him to oppose him, I think SpreadX were the bookmaker in the UK who were offering bets against them. If you can get a bet on with SpreadX, then oppose him in the first round. But then that's just kind of pot luck as to if you've got an account with SpreadX, and if you're based outside of the UK, you might not have that option, or you might not have a bookmaker that offers you that. So it's one of those ones. I think that as markets start to open up in other territories, I think that offers us more scope to do bets in different markets, and that's definitely something that we want to do as the markets open up.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those, I guess, one of those sports where you if you really like one player, and you think they present value in the each way market, for example, they're probably going to present value in a number of other markets. So you can really hone down on them as long as you're not overstaking or anything and put too much risk out there. Emotions of golf betting. This is one topic I'm very excited to talk about because I don't know how you guys deal with it. Yeah, how do you guys manage your time during the week and I guess the emotions given the length of these tournaments? I like I said before, I couldn't think of anything worse than watching a bet that I place on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday morning, and I'm not going to find out whether it's going to win or lose until Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, and I have to watch 4 days of seeing this thing if it's going to win or not. And I know because I know you guys are watching every day the golf tournament, so you're basically, I mean, spending what I would call 4 stressful days in a row. Maybe you guys, maybe you guys have gotten used to it by now.
I didn't used to have grey hair when I started doing this.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Bloody hell.
It is difficult. I think it's one of those ones that it's the shot itself. A golfer's shot will take a couple of seconds, but like you say, the whole sport or watching it will take hours and hours and hours. But those couple of seconds where they got maybe a putt, for example, to win the tournament, that for us is fantastic. The adrenaline in those moments is incredible. And like for me, there's no other sport like golf. Football is great, and the other live sports that might go on are great, but golf for me is just fantastic. Just those moments of sheer, the highs and the lows, I think, in golf are bigger than any other sport that I can think of. And for me, it's just, I'm addicted to it.
Yeah, I if there's a selection coming through on the last day, I normally wake up and there's maybe like an hour or 2 left in the tournament. So if one of the selections is looking good, I might tune in for like the last couple of holes. And that is just the most painful time of my life because it just takes forever, mate. It takes forever. I don't know how you guys do it. I'm a very impatient person. So watching like the last, even like a playoff, seeing them tie a couple of holes, go to the, it's just so painful. So I don't know.
It's called value for money, Alex. With football, you only get 90 minutes of the highs and lows.
I know.
With golf, you've got 4 days of it, and no, we wouldn't change it for the world, to be fair. There's actually a video out there of our first win of the season came at one of the events in Saudi, and one of the players, Harold Varner, he chipped in on the last hole to win it. And funnily enough, I don't actually know. I think I was videoing the shot just for a friend because he was out at the time and he wanted to know what was happening. And I wasn't expecting it to go in, but there was a bit of a reaction in that video. Let's say it's surfacing somewhere on Twitter and YouTube. So you can maybe try and find that one. But I think that shows perfectly the emotions in golf.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine, mate. But I guess like one of the advantages you guys have, if you guys are willing to put in the time and watch all of these tournaments, is it gives you probably a big advantage in the in-play market, like we were kind of discussing earlier. I mean, there's no doubt that the bookmakers are not going to be watching I would assume that their in-play prices are going to be completely data-driven for the most part. So considering that they're going to limit you a lot more frequently if you're betting on in-play winners, that normally means that there's greater value, or at least they're not paying as much attention to those markets. So do you guys think there is a greater edge in the in-play market?
I think there can be. I think depending on if you're on the ball and you're paying attention, you can pick up some great value golf betting. If, for example, let's say you want to bet on the first round leader market, for example, that's going on today, that's topical. If a player hits a shot to within like 2 foot, he's got a tap in putt for an eagle. He's going to catapult himself up the leaderboard. Generally, the bookmakers will take a little bit of time to react to that. And if you're on the ball, you can be in there and make sure you get that bet on before the bookmakers have a chance to react to the fact that he's going to hold the putt. Because quite often, if a player is hit it with inside 5 foot, you make the putt a lot of the time, and you can almost back the price before the putt has even gone in and the scoreboard has changed to reflect that that eagle is going to happen. Obviously, like bookmakers are now a bit more, savvy to that, and their systems, will reflect if a player hits it close, they'll be able to adjust the price. But yeah, you do have a certain amount of time to get on and back a player. So I certainly think there is good value in play, but I certainly think that there's value to be had pre-event as well. Just looking around all the different markets that the bookmakers offer. I think there's now so many markets in the UK, especially, that just by looking around the markets, you can certainly get some value, because when they don't have the prices to compare against each other like they do in the outright market, maybe if it's a match bet, for example, where there's not a lot of similar match bets available, maybe it's 2 players that bookmaker has selected and no other bookmaker has got those players up against each other. They've got nothing else to benchmark it against. And you can sometimes get a bit of value there in the pre-event markets as well.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting thing that I mean, if you guys are doing all the work, watching all the every day, like it's a huge edge that you guys must be able to form against the market, because like I said, there's probably not as many people betting and watching every single thing that's going on. Now to the juicy stuff. For most of this year, you guys were running at a loss, and it was only recently that you guys turned things around. How challenging was that period? Because like I said before, it's almost like your whole life. You're probably spending like Monday to Wednesday thinking about the next tournaments and coming up with selections, and then you spend the next 4 days watching and sweating all these tournaments. So I can imagine that if you're running at a loss for what was it, maybe 7-8 months of the year, you're it can become all encompassing. And you guys have got each other to fall back on and have a chat with every now and then. But how challenging was that period for both of you?
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating when that happens. I mean, we put a lot of time into what we do, and I think the fact that we started this in 2020, and the success in the first 2 years was, I think we almost set the bar too high in the first 2 years, and it's been hard to match that. But it's just felt like this year has been a bit of the breaks, let's just say, haven't been going our way until recently, and we're starting to see that, you know, the guys that would normally fall out of the places on the last day, these things are starting to go our way. And I think over the course of a year, that tends to happen. It's like if you look at football, when a manager complains about how about the penalties that they're getting against them,
Yeah.
but it always evens itself out. That's the phrase. It tends to always even itself out. But no, it has been a hard year, and I spoke earlier. It's been good that we do it together, because sometimes you do think, what is the point? Why am I doing this? Why am I putting in all this time and getting no breaks? But no, you stick with the process, and I think that's been the key to the comeback this year. We've not changed what we do. We're confident in what we do. We're confident in the process, and that's probably, for me, that's been the key. Just sticking to it and going from there.
How hard is it, if I don't know if you have had, but the subscribers, people that subscribe to your service, if they're, you know, asking you questions, and the only thing you can really give them back is just you have to wait, and especially for those people who maybe they just subscribe to you because, you know, that maybe they're, you know, not really that into betting at all, in terms of, like, you know, making it a profession or anything like that. They're just doing it for a hobby on the side, and they don't understand how the betting markets work. I mean, the general public get fed so much crap about that this, you know, this is like a thing.
Yeah.
If you do it full time, that you're probably going to win every week, and there's never going to be any losses. If there is a loss, you know, it'll only be for a couple of days. And, you know, you're getting to the stage now where you're going 6-7 months without, or running at a loss for those 6-7 months. Like, how hard is it to explain to people? And have you had any fun conversations with people who are getting quite irate?
No, we've not had to have any conversations. I think we've got some great subscribers who kind of understand the variance in golf. I think the other thing to say is that, you know, we've had quite a few bad breaks this year where things just haven't gone our way, and you can see that, you know, the rationale behind the selections has been good. It just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. You know, I think that Matthew Jordan, I think in Qatar, was a great example where we selected him at the start of the week at 80-1. He was leading. I think he was 2 ahead with maybe 8 holes to go. And he was playing a par 5 and lost his ball. Now, bear in mind that, you know, it's a televised event, the final round of a DP World Tour event, and the leader loses his ball. You know, it's just unheard of that happens. There's crowd. Well, I know it was in Qatar, so the crowds weren't as big as normal. But, you know, normally there's crowds about, the cameras are there, they can tell exactly where the ball's gone. And, you know, freak things like that just seem to kind of befall us this year. And people understand, I think, that when things like that happen, that's just bad luck, and it will turn. So no, we've been really lucky that our subscribers are great. They've stuck by us, they've kept the faith, and hopefully, you know, that they've been rewarded with the results in the last few weeks, and hopefully we'll go on to finish the season strong.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Because you guys could, let's just say the first 6 months, you guys could be running at a loss, and then you could just have one weekend where maybe you get a couple of each way guys, and you back the winner at 150 or something like that, and you could go from a negative 5% ROI to like a plus 10-15% just in in one weekend. So it's yeah, it's a crazy sport, and it shows, it highlights the importance of sticking to whatever processes work for you over the years, and also staking. Like, you can't be going up and down with your stakes. It needs to be a strict staking plan for the whole year. You know, don't vary it because you're losing lots, or don't up it because you're winning lots. You need to stay so strict with that. Was this the longest period you guys have gone of negative results?
Yeah, I think it's the only period really. The first year was incredibly successful, and I think we got off to a slightly slow start in 2021, but we're only talking about 4 or 5 weeks before we got into profit and stayed in profit for the rest of the year. So it's definitely a challenging experience from us, but also one that we can definitely learn from. And if we do start slow again, there'll be less panicking, I think, and we know that we can come back from it, and we've proved that this year. And the results over the course of the 2 to 3 years that we've been in existence speak for themselves. And I think just to come back to you, when you were talking about the subscribers, have we had any problems this year? I don't think so, but I think the majority of our subscribers have been with us for at least over a year now, so they've seen the rewards as well as the low points earlier in the season. So no, it'll be fine. I think we'll finish the season in profit. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Last question, fellas. From each of you, it'd be great to know if might be people out there who are passionate golf fans, watch every weekend, but they can't back a winner, or they've just got no idea how the betting markets work. How similar to you guys when you had a massive passion for golf back in the day, what kind of advice would you give to them other than following Golf Betting Club on how to turn their passion of golf into an edge in betting and something that they can sustain long term?
So I think the thing for me was that, or how I got into golf betting in the first place was there was a book that was written by a man called Keith Elliott when we were growing up. I think it was called Elliott's Golf Form, but it was almost like a golf betting Bible. It had, this is pre-internet now we're talking. This was a book that contained all the results from events for the previous year, and then it had player profiles on. It must have been at least a couple of hundred golfers. It talked about their strengths, their weaknesses, what kind of events they're going to do well in, and I think really that's kind of what I would recommend. Not obviously go out and get the book because the book doesn't exist anymore, but learn about players, learn as much as you can about players, and if you're limited for time, focus on one tour. You don't have to cover both tours. If you're strapped for time, with the DP World Tour on during the day here in the UK, the PGA Tour is on in the evening. So if you're working a 9-to-5 job, focus on the PGA Tour, learn the players that compete on the PGA Tour, learn their strengths, learn their weaknesses, and for me, that's the key for me, is that if you can understand the players as much as possible, that gives you a fighting chance to go ahead and take advantage of any opportunities. Just learn as much as you can. There's so much quotes and information out there about the players these days that there's no excuse not to know lots about the players. And if you put in the time, you will be rewarded.
Yeah. And you, Neil?
Yeah, I think the word you've just said there, time, that is the main thing with golf betting. It's not as cut and dry as a football match where you need to study the two teams. It does take time to develop the knowledge of the players. If you're short on time, you just have to subscribe to us or something, or go on our website and look at our player profiles. But no, it's not really a sport that you can just jump into without putting a lot of time and effort and doing your research and watching a lot of events to get a feel for the players and how they react under pressure and stuff like that. So yeah, unfortunately, there's no shortcut I can really advise.
No, terrific, fellas. It's been a pleasure talking to you and learning all about how you guys go about your business. You've been hugely successful, so I'm sure people will get a lot out of this. Do you guys just want to quickly mention, maybe just talk a little bit about your service, how it operates, and where people can find your service?
Yeah, so if you go on the website, so that's golfbettingclub.com, you'll find details about how to subscribe for the service there. You can subscribe for the rest of 2022 for only £75 at the moment. So that'll take you right up. I think it's till the end of November. So you get a couple of months out of that, and then the new subscription will start in 2023. But on the website, you'll find the player profiles that Neil just mentioned. So we've got over 150 player profiles on there, and that'll give you good information about a lot of the main players. So if you are strapped for time, that'd be a really great place to start. Go and learn about the players there, and that's all free. You don't have to subscribe to access the player profiles. We give those away for nothing, and they're updated every week, so they're relatively up to date. And then we also give away in-play tips for free every week as well. So although we charge for the pre-event tips and you have to subscribe for them, that's the £75 for the rest of the year. We give away the in-play tips completely free, and we do an in-play blog every week as well. So when the relevant event on the PGA Tour or the DP World Tour starts, if you go on to golfbettingclub.com, you can click on the relevant event and you'll find our in-play tips after each round as well. And as I say, they're completely free.
Yeah, no, terrific stuff. I guess if people are a bit strict for money at the moment, then yeah, definitely jump on and follow some of your in-play blogs. So I've followed a few of them and gotten a few winners myself. So yeah, I mean, for free, it's an absolute bargain. So well done, fellas. Thanks for coming on, and thanks everyone for listening at home. If this is your first time or 10th time on the podcast, if you could please do a quick rate and review of the podcast, it would help us a lot, and subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you're listening from. But yeah, pleasure having you on, fellas, and good luck with the rest of the year. It's I don't know how you guys do it. It would just be such a stressful sport for me if I was you guys. But you're doing a terrific job, so keep it up.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having us.
Enjoyed being on.